autism. Now, in the county right now, there's a big, huge push for this because as you probably are very aware that you have a big population of students with autism in your school. You draw from your ID program, which has students with autism, and you draw from your comprehensive site with students with autism. And you have a lot of kids that are in your base school coming from your feeder school, so stay tuned. There's a lot of them coming. And so, in order to get kind of ahead of it and kind of follow the plan with the county initiative and bringing that awareness, I'm here today. Yay. Yeah. Who knows somebody personally with autism? Who's impacted? See, when you look around, there's a lot of you. Now, when you think of autism, think about the first three things that come to your mind. Just think. Okay, shout some things out. What comes to mind?
Brain man.
Smart.
Lack of social skills.
Lack of social skills.
Focused.
Focused. Literal.
Scripted.
Scripted.
Different culture.
Different what?
Different culture.
Different
like a subculture almost.
Okay, yes.
Change is difficult.
Change. Difficult.
Resistance.
Any others? A lot. So as you can see, when you say these things about the different students with autism, they vary. From smart to, we have some kids that are quite low functioning. It's a spectrum disorder. Research shows that 1% of the world's population has autism. They're on the spectrum somehow. That in the US, there's an estimated 1 out of every 68 births is resulting with autism. That's for the US. And as a result, it is the largest growing developmental disability that we have. There are 3.5 million Americans that live with autism spectrum disorder, and it's costing the United States, whether it's personal with families, whether it's places for educating, whether it's resources available, it's costing between $236 to $262 billion. And research is showing that the sooner we put in interventions, the better results we have and the less money it's going to cost. So you can see it's having a profound effect on our world. As ASD, you often hear it, is autism spectrum disorder. Now, recently, the definition has changed. Before that, you would hear the word Asperger's. Who's heard of Asperger's syndrome? Okay. Now we're not calling students with Asperger. Now it's one blanket of autism. So that is a new, I want to say the definition changed. I know for sure it's been a year, 2 years. So it's a more recent judgment that's done. Now, we're often really familiar because you have a program here that has students with emotional disabilities. And the way we program and we service for emotional disabilities is very different than how we program for students with autism. With our students with autism, it is based on communication disorder. It is also a developmental disorder. It's not something that all of a sudden they came up with, okay? Whereas for ED, it could come on any time at any age. Who knows? Maybe not ED, right? So, whereas with autism, you have it. With autism, it is a spectrum, as I had said, and you have one end of the spectrum to the other. So when you look at your social interactions, you have those students who are totally in their own world. You try to engage them, and they are not engaging with you. They are very happy in whatever is stimulating them into their mind. As well as the students who are with us, are interacting and really want to be a part of their environment. They want to have friends, but they just don't know how to navigate it. You have students on the one end for communication who are absolutely nonverbal, or who only communicate with pictures, to students who are brilliant. The words and conversations and their ideas that come to us, we're going, oh my gosh, what is that word? What does it mean? So you have all the way on the whole other spectrum of that. As well as you have students that do those stereotypical behaviors. You'll see the flapping or just, moving or pacing back and forth. To students who have, on the other end of the continuum, might have some rigidity, have a hard time being flexible, kind of get stuck in things. But it is a continuum, and it is a massive continuum. Fairfax County has partnered with the autism research, and as part of that, they developed a 4-part series. And they've done it with Robinson High School. So if you know any teachers or any students from Robinson High School, they actually went and videotaped. And you will see students with autism in this video, as well as the teachers that are working with them. And this should give you a little bit more insight. I really want you to see the ad. Hopefully the sound works. I'm going to get to it, I know.
Ask people to describe a child with autism, and you're
guys
likely
hear
to
it?
get a stereotype.
A child that's nonverbal, inside themselves, cut off from the world.
Who doesn't understand language.
They don't think the way they should think.
Rain Man. Everybody says Rain Man.
Has difficulty communicating.
Someone who's severely intellectually disabled.
While these descriptions apply to some children with autism, it's not the full picture. Once you understand what autism is and how it affects individuals, you'll be better prepared to teach students with the disorder and successfully integrate them into your classroom. Autism is a lifelong developmental disorder that affects a person's ability to communicate, form relationships, and respond appropriately to the environment. It results from a neurological condition that impedes normal brain development in the areas of social interaction and communication skills.
There are many more of these individuals in our midst than there ever have been before. And the likelihood that we're going to encounter them in our classrooms, in our communities, is extremely high.
An accurate perception of autism from the child's point of view may be hard to convey, but a comparison is useful.
If you were to say to me, how are hearing impaired individuals different from typical students, I would simply say they don't process auditory information in the same way. That's a pretty easy explanation. Visually impaired, they don't process visual information in the same way. People with autism don't process the environment in the same way. Oftentimes they can't pick out what you're talking about. They have a hard time understanding the main idea. So they're not processing the world in the way you think they are.
Autism is called a spectrum disorder because its symptoms and characteristics appear in a variety of combinations, from mild to quite severe. As a result, children on the autism spectrum range from those with extreme developmental disabilities to those with surprising intellectual abilities.
IQs can vary from an IQ of 20 to an IQ of 150 or greater. You have children with autism who are nonverbal, and then you have children with autism who know more words than a university professor. You have children with autism who would rather be by themselves, and then you have those who want friends but who do not know how to make them.
Students with autism may also exhibit extreme sensitivities to the environment, being overly distracted by the hum of a computer or feeling overwhelmed by a particular odor.
Some of our students may have hearing so sensitive that they can hear construction 3 blocks away. They may be distracted by the sound of pencil on paper. Turning of a page can disrupt them.
And sometimes it makes it extremely difficult for them, not just to stay kind of calm behaviorally and to kind of regulate their reactions to those things, but also to attend to whatever else is going on in the classroom.
Polytheism means beliefs in many gods.
At the higher functioning end of the autism spectrum are those individuals who tend to be more adept at speaking and using language and are capable of doing so convincingly. Academically, these students tend to be very capable and because of this are often included in the general education classroom. However, they still exhibit many of the common characteristics associated with autism.
Someone with autism or Asperger's or any of those spectrum disorders, they're the same as a regular person. It's just there's a little bit different about how they communicate.
Their problems are often in the areas of social skills. They have a difficult time navigating the social environment. They may have anxiety, which really compromises their ability to deal with complicated environments, and you're not going to find anything more complicated than middle school and high school.
In preschool and very early elementary grades, students with autism may not seem developmentally different than their peers. But by the time they enter secondary school, the differences become more pronounced and visible, and challenges posed by the new environment can seem overwhelming.
So now they're going to have to deal with many different teachers. They've got to understand all the different rules.
How to move from class to class. What materials are needed for each class. How do you clean up your materials so that they are cleaned up by the time the bell rings? How do you arrive at class on time? How do you even hang out in the halls and socialize with other kids?
One teacher may be fine for you to just get up from your chair to go do things. The other may require hand raising.
What do you do at lunch? How much time do you need for your homework?
So you wanted to come and talk to me about your grade, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
School is really great, but there's challenges that I have to face, like getting to class on time. I used to run in the hall so I would get to class on time, which is why I joined the track team. That way I would run safer on the track, not in the hall.
Autism impacts many areas of a young person's development and to varying degrees. So while they may exhibit similar characteristics, no two individuals with autism are alike. Secondary school teachers should be especially attuned to their students' language and communication skills.
Okay, does anybody here know?
They can talk, and they can talk in full sentences, but their language comprehension may be quite impaired. They're often very difficult with subtle language. They don't understand sarcasm or jokes.
A child with autism may not understand humor, may need more direct instruction on, I need for you to do this, I need for you to stop doing this because. And they feel more confident when you give them clear information on how they're doing, what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong.
Communication with students with autism has to be learned one student at a time. I ask my students to tell me how they want me to communicate with them. I have worked out with students that a hand gesture will indicate, don't call on me. I don't want you to call on me.
Another characteristic students with autism share is repetitive patterns of behavior.
Repetitive behaviors, this can range from the very impaired kids, where it's the more classic stuff like the rocking and the flapping, all the way up to the individual who may fixate on a specific topic and be very repetitive about it, or need things done in a specific order.
Some students with autism have strong verbal abilities that suggest social and emotional maturity.
I'm very interested in the study of aquatic fish, especially freshwater. It fascinates me how a guppy can live in salt water that has more salt than the ocean itself.
Just because they can talk very intelligently to you in a monologue doesn't mean that they don't have a disability.
Wild betas will fight each other until one goes away.
Because a monologue is not a conversation. It is them telling you all the facts about their preferred subject.
So I was thinking of going to the mall. Yeah, on Friday. You guys. Yeah. You guys are going to the mall? Yeah, we are. Can I come? I don't. Maybe I don't know.
But what we know is social emotionally, our kids are 1/3 to 2/3 of chronological age. And so a child who is 12, who has high functioning autism, has the social skills of someone who is between 4 and maybe 8 years old.
Many of these students also lack basic social skills.
Did you guys see the Marion last night?
What song were you singing to get in?
I don't know, I can't decide. I was like, because there's so many songs.
One
time I won a softball tournament and we were crowned the champions.
The rules and interactions of casual conversation, which most typically developing children understand, are often lost on them.
To interact with someone, you have to know how to take turns in conversation. You have to know how to interpret their facial expressions and gestures. You need to be able to ask questions. Now, those are all challenges that are seen within individuals with autism.
It's a lot harder for, I think, people with autism sometimes to watch what we say, because sometimes we don't really understand what the right thing to say is.
The unwritten rules and codes of social interactions, which students with autism often find elusive, are called the hidden curriculum.
It's everything about the environment and the world that somehow we just know. You know, for example, you just know that when you get on a public bus and there's only one person on the bus, that you just know that you don't sit next to him. No one ever says, please never get on to sit next to me, there's only one person on the bus. And yet, interestingly enough, right, the kids with autism, they're inclined to sit next to the person because they've been drilled for years that you should be social, you shouldn't ignore people.
The hidden curriculum is a term that's used for all of the unwritten social rules, kind of the social nuances that we all understand and respond to, even though they aren't explicitly discussed and possibly no one ever told us. Because those things are so subtle, many individuals on the autism spectrum miss them completely. So they don't understand, how do I modify how I behave with somebody who I'm very close to versus someone I barely know? How should I behave when I'm in the classroom versus when I'm on the bus versus on the playground?
Lots of different reasons why you might not be invited to do something. So you should never assume that it's because someone dislikes you.
Many schools offer interpersonal skills development courses for students with autism, in effect teaching directly what most children learn intuitively from daily experience.
It's based around working on social skills and interacting with other people and things that they'll need in life forever, not just in middle school and high school.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on appropriate facial expressions. Okay,
They
so we'll talk
learn
about-
what's an appropriate distance when you're talking to someone, tone of voice, things like that.
They got making eye contact. I still have some trouble with making eye contact, but I try to at least part of the time be making eye contact.
We tend to pull in a lot of general education students and have socials and times to interact with people. We'll work on certain skills beforehand, and then we'll try them out in a situational experience for them.
So that's the blue you like? The one over there? Are you sure? Yeah.
While the personal development classes help prepare students with autism for everyday situations, they can't prepare them for everything.
You look sad. Why would you say that to me?
They don't recognize often that they're being bullied. So they're bullied a lot longer. I think that the fact that their language is compromised, the fact that they don't know they're being bullied, the fact that they do these kind of odd things that make them prime targets.
Can't believe you did that.
No way.
In the secondary classroom, teachers will likely see students with autism struggle with basic skills.
For the most part, organizing their materials, organizing the sequence of tasks that they should do are often formidable challenges for individuals with autism. From a teaching perspective, it's probably the way in which students with autism in your classroom are most high maintenance. So kind of getting them on track, reminding them of what they ought to be doing, noticing that they're not doing steps 2, 3, and 4 that they're supposed to be doing.
Their anxiety levels can be very high when they feel like they're confronted with a whole lot of information at once, a whole lot of steps at one time.
And the more they fall behind and the more disorganized they get, the more anxious they get, which then leads to the potential for behavior problems.
Even if no two students with autism are exactly alike, they can learn in common ways.
Couldn't go this way. They couldn't go through the Mediterranean.
Our students are visual learners and require the ability to see something and to interpret it. Anything that is not literal, that is expected or assumed, must be spelled out, and it's most beneficial if it's written out also.
Students with autism are far more likely to thrive when there's consistency and predictability in the classroom.
They come to class, they're expected to be in their seat on time with their materials. Bell rings, they better be ready to go. But also on the board, I consistently put down what the schedule is going to be, so they already know what's going to happen that day. And also the homework assignments. So it doesn't change. And I'm the same day one and the last day when that last bell rings and the last student walks out, I haven't changed at all. So it's that structure and that consistency that I think is really important for them.
Routine leads to comfort in the classroom and may enable many of these students to flourish.
I know a young man who has a special interest in carnivorous houseplants. And because he cannot read nonverbal, he can't tell if someone is bored or disinterested, he will continue to talk about carnivorous houseplants for as long as he is able to. Now, you may look at that as a challenge. However, this young man will probably grow up to be a botanist.
The specialized knowledge and unique abilities of students with autism can expand the learning experience for both students and teachers beyond the academic realm.
Having a student with autism in the class can teach typically developing students that there are differences and embrace the differences. Nobody's normal. There's no one normal person. Everybody's got their own quirks, and that's what makes everybody interesting. And so this is just another dynamic of interesting. And so I think that kind of helps them embrace differences.
Children with autism will expand your way of thinking if you listen. And if you ask the right questions, and if they feel confident and accepted enough to volunteer and answer, you will find that the quality and richness of what you teach is increased by answers and ideas they can bring to the table.
Ultimately, with students on the autism spectrum in their classroom, teachers have the opportunity to reinforce a broader lesson to all their students.
If we can make sure that part of what fellow students in a classroom learn about a person with autism is some of the ways in which they might be similar, some of the interests that they share, some of the activities that they also enjoy. I think it goes a long way toward building, first of all, a more comprehensive understanding of this person, but also a bridge to, thinking, well, we're not just different from each other, we're also similar to each other.
This segment provides an understanding of autism's characteristics and how it affects secondary students diagnosed with the disorder. The next segment, called Integrating Supports in the Classroom, presents an overview of strategies that can help.
So with all that information, did you learn any ahas in that video? What are some ahas that you could apply?
How quickly it could be for a student to get off task with turning of a page or someone coughing or, just a little minute thing that you wouldn't think was a big deal could set them off the rest of the period.
Right. And so on this graphic right here, this is a perfect example. You may think that they're not paying attention on purpose, whereas in reality, they're distracted. And so they've got to find a way. And so in our old thinking, a lot of times we look at our students with autism and we'll think, oh, they know how to do it. Oh, they're just being stubborn. They're just being difficult. Oh, they're just, not caring about what, they know exactly what people are making fun of them and stuff. They're doing it to get attention. But in reality, when you look at it, as opposed to they won't do it, it's a can't. I can't do it because I don't know how to ask for help. I can't do it because I don't know the system to access certain things in your class. It could be that I'm overwhelmed. It could be that I'm distracted by the fan that's going in the background. And so we've got to kind of change our thinking from the old thinking on that they won't do it, whereas that it could be that they can't because of that hidden curriculum. Makes a big difference. And so as we know, it impacts our classes in all of these ways in our school. And they've talked about all the social skills, all the challenges that they have, and they're not having the conversation like the parent had shared. It's a monologue as opposed to a dialogue. And they're not picking up that we're bored to death about what you're talking about. Whenever they express something, they'll say, I'm mad. You don't look mad. And so it's really hard because they're not having those overt expressions. So with all of these different challenges that you have with the students, it makes it difficult. And a really perfect example for this is, who watches Big Bang Theory? With our friend Sheldon.
It's done. Go to the table.
There's no such thing as too much collaboration. We're working with farmers and many others to help make balanced meals accessible to everyone. It's time for a bigger discussion about food. Be part of the conversation.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Just in time. I believe I've isolated the algorithm for making friends.
Sheldon, there is no algorithm for making friends.
Oh, hear him out. He's really onto something. We could open a booth at Comic-Con, make a fortune. See, my initial approach to Kripke had the same deficiencies as those that played Stu the Cockatoo when he was new at the zoo. Stu the Cockatoo?
Yes, he's new at the zoo.
It's a terrific book. I've distilled its essence into a simple flowchart that will guide me through the process.
Have you thought about putting him in a crate while you're at the apartment?
Hello, Kripke. Yeah, Sheldon Cooper here. It occurred to me that you hadn't returned any of my calls because I hadn't offered any concrete suggestions for pursuing our friendship. Yet perhaps the two of us might share a meal together. I see. Well, then perhaps you'd have time for a hot beverage. Popular choices include tea, coffee, cocoa. I see. No, wait, don't hang up yet. But what about a recreational activity? I bet we share some common interests. You tell me an interest of yours. Really? On actual horses? Tell me another interest. Oh, I'm sorry, I have no desire to get in the water, so I absolutely have to. Another interest of yours.
He's stuck in an infinite loop. I can't
It's interesting, but isn't ventriloquism by definition a solo activity? Yeah. I mean, tell me another interest of yours. Is there any chance you like monkeys? Hey, what is wrong with you? Everybody likes monkeys. Hang on, Kripke. A loop counter and an escape to the least objectionable activity. Howard, that's brilliant. I'm surprised you saw that.
Gee, why can't Sheldon make friends?
All right, Kripke, that last interest strikes me as the least objectionable, and I would like to propose that we do that together. Tomorrow. Yes, I'll pay. Goodbye. All right. Time to learn rock climbing.
So as you can see, this is a perfect example of what a student with autism has to go through to get an opportunity to be able to talk to a friend, to make plans, and go do that. All those hidden curriculum things that have to happen. And just think of your classroom, all the hidden curriculum that you have in there. It makes it really, really difficult. Some of these things I'm skipping over because with time, but it's all on your server so you can look more specifically. On Blackboard, yes. But the one thing I want to stress to you is when you start seeing your students becoming a little, they call it the rumbling stage, kind of a little off, and it could start meaning that they start picking, it could be their pencil goes down, to immediately recognize it and try to figure it out by analyzing their environment at that moment to see if there's any triggers. Because if we're not more attuned to that, what's going to happen is we're going to have a meltdown. And when the meltdown happens, it becomes very uncomfortable. And a lot of times that's where the students get negative stereotypes placed upon them because of what people witnessed. And so as a result, whenever they go through the recovery, it's really important that you debrief with them to figure out exactly what went wrong, what can we do next time to help you to prevent it. Because they're not gonna all of a sudden say, wow, I was in the cafeteria and people were cutting in line, and so I should have done this or that. They're not going to reflect back on it. You need to take them through it literally to understand it and process that. In your classrooms, just to a partner, share something that you would like to strengthen in your classroom so that your students can help with them to navigate the hidden curriculum. What is something that you could do? You can just tell a partner, or you can call out.
Identifying the triggers when a kid is having a meltdown. I think we all know what those meltdowns look like and maybe how to react to them in the moment, but I don't know how often I've ever really sat down. If it wasn't a super obvious thing that I observed happening there in the moment, I don't know how often I've really gone back and really reflected on maybe a more subtle trigger that's not just one action that occurred, right?
Right. Because most likely, like you're saying, there was a whole bunch of little things that builds up to that big meltdown. That would be awesome to do that. Any others? Yes.
Well, we just, a potential roadblock being class size. Just that sometimes, even if we do identify certain characteristics, just maybe more effective ways that we can not pause everyone else because we know what we need to do for the needs of a particular group of students. But I don't know, give them a more effective strategy for addressing issues of students on the spectrum while my sentence died, but make class equal problems.
Yeah, no, and class size, yeah, the size of it, to deal with it, to notice those things can be difficult, which is why it's really important if they do have a diagnosis and they do qualify for special ed services to continue that conversation with your special ed needs managers. There's lots of basic things you can do. The 5 top ones that they're really stressing are priming. If you're changing things, if you're going to anticipate that there's going to be a problem with something, priming them ahead of time so that they can practice. Also, provide those academic modifications. If they have it through their IEP or through your classroom, make sure that you're really providing that. Also, look at visual supports. They are visual learners. They see things in pictures. And so any type of visual support that you can provide, the more success you're going to have. In addition, reinforcement, providing that they're getting, that they know what they're doing is the right thing, that you're providing that feedback to them, as well as if they're doing it incorrectly, corrective feedback. And then home base, they'll say, as a person that they could go to. And I don't mean like a flash pass out, but somebody that's keeping tabs on them, somewhere that they feel safe. And just in the big picture, it's really important that we practice the systems that we need our students to know within our classrooms, remain calm if something is starting to escalate, that we can only manage ourselves. And so how we react to a situation is going to be critical on how our students are going to react to that situation as well. Be prepared for the unexpected, because something will happen and you'll think, like you had said, I don't know what went down, but something happened. Be reflective with that. And make sure that that corrective feedback that you're giving to the students happens so that they can repair it or make a better choice the next time. And so, in closing, we do want to remember the strengths of these students, that they have great memories, that their ability to visually process things is amazing, and that their intense focus on their interest, use it for the greater good. And instead of having the old thinking and thinking, oh, they can't do it, they won't do it, that they're doing something to be bad or doing something to irritate where they know better, change your thinking instead to maybe it's something different. Maybe it is something sensory within the environment. Maybe they are overloaded. And think of something new that you can try. And the last thing I would like to leave you with is...
We had planned to bring you a story tonight about a kind of prep school that prepares football players for the NFL draft and big contracts. But we're going to call it audible. We're going to switch sports tonight because we've run across an absolutely amazing basketball player that we want you to see. Here's Steve Hartman.
Grace Athena High School in Rochester, New York has a new, most unlikely hero, a special ed student by the name of Jason McElwain. Let's keep it going. Jason is the basketball team manager. For the past couple years, he's been assisting Coach Jim Johnson, helping with whatever the team needs.
And do! Get him motivated, hang out water, and just be enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, to say the least. Despite being born with autism, Jason's father says his son has never had a problem expressing himself at basketball games.
I was always concerned that he might get a technical when they lose a game because he, start yelling or whatever.
Let's have a hard practice tomorrow. All hour and a half, and let's get ready for our training. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 2.
Because he has been so devoted to the team, for the last game of the season, Coach Johnson decided to let Jason actually suit up. Not to play necessarily, just to let him feel what it's like to wear a jersey.
At least that was the plan. But with 4 minutes to go in last week's game, Coach Johnson stood up and pointed to number 52, Jason McElwain. After years of fetching water and toweling off other people's sweat, Jason was actually in a game. His first shot was a 20-footer from the right baseline. Was it close? Did you almost make it?
I just airballed it.
Please, let's just get him a basket. His second shot missed too, but the third was a charm. A 3-point no-doubter. And Jason wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. If I wasn't there to witness it, I wouldn't have believed it,
You caught fire. I just caught fire. That was hot as a pistol.
Ended up shooting 6 3-pointers. One right after the other. He had 20 points total, and each time a shot went in, his teammates and the crowd went a little crazier. His last basket, right at the buzzer, created total mayhem. Because he is autistic, Jason says he's used to feeling different, but never this different. Never this wonderful. Steve Hartman, CBS News, Rochester, New York.
Pretty amazing. And so I leave you with that. Just taking a moment with our students who are on the spectrum, just looking at them with a different lens and figuring out ways that we can support them. So enjoy. I'm done. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, turning it back to you.
Thank you guys. Have a good Thanksgiving break.